Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to the MicFlayer podcast, coming to you today, screeching from the depths of the yawning portal. I am your host, Martin O'Dwyer, and with me today, as always, is your host, Conor O'Brien. How are we doing today, Conor?
Hi, everybody. How's things?
I'm
doing well. Sorry, I forgot to answer your question there. This is a great start. I'm doing well. I'm absolutely wrecked from the week, and I wish I could say it's because I've been working hard, but it's not. I'm just tired.
I feel you. I think like anyone watching is like they never sleep, just looking at like the circles under both of our eyes.
Stuff, yeah.
But other than that, it's been pretty solid week. I had a lot of fun writing some cool lore for my D&D campaign last night. Like always fun to write like vestige lore.
Yes.
which is a lot of fun. Getting a lot of use out of the research rules from Xanathars actually, which is cool. Makes things a lot easier than just like actually more rewarding, I think.
This is when you can you spend a number of gold to like investigate things in a library, and it goes towards paper and research and bribes and all this kind of stuff. I've been letting you off the hook.
I know.
I realized that recently. I'm like, you'll often be like, "Can I go to a library?" I'm like, "Sure, you can." Libraries are like public domain or whatever. I'm like, no, now they cost money. Just know that going forward, they cost money.
Yeah, I think it was a treat. I think, if I remember rightly, from like a few weeks ago, my guys were doing it. I think it was 350 gold to get a +6 modifier on your intelligence roll.
That's really, I like that though. I like that you can get a bonus based on how much you're willing to invest monetarily, because you don't have enough. We won't get into it this way, but honestly, that's actually a topic we could do, is how to make gold more useful in D&D.
Yeah,
because I feel like it's really not.
I think, we can definitely get to that on a different day, because I think if we start in that, we're never going to get past that. We're going to do an entire podcast.
I have so many gripes with the currency system.
I am aware. I remember when you tried to fix it yourself, and after like a day, you were like, "Do you know what? Just fuck it, gold."
Turns out fixing an economy is actually not that easy. Sorry, politicians. I figured you just weren't trying.
I was like, as soon as it said fix an economy, I was like, there's a politician joke coming here. But cool. No, other than that, super excited for what we've got going today. And actually, speaking of libraries, and just the research thing, my guys have been going to that a lot, and I think it will come up again later, because it's tied into something that we will be talking about towards the end of the show, which I think will be a lot of fun. Cool. You ready to get into our mini topic?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Got my list all prepped.
Excellent. I have mine beside me here, and I'm actually, so we haven't told each other what we've picked. We're just gonna go with it. I have a few on my list. I'm positive that Conor will recognize just from characters I've played.
We should probably say what the lists are.
Oh yes,
I think we've glossed over that a little
slightly.
bit.
But yeah, today our mini topic is the top 3 spells below 5th level. So myself and Conor have built out 2 lists. Our 3 top spells. I think we've also done some honorable mentions each that we'll get to shortly afterwards. We just have to kind of talk about it. But do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to start. Mine. Okay, in terms of top 3, mine are in no particular order. These are 3 spells I really like on the 5th level. But I'm going to start from lowest level, I think, and try to work up.
Okay.
This one's a cantrip.
Oh, cool. I've got some cantrips.
And I really like it, and I'm playing an Eldritch Knight at the moment, and it's honestly going to be one of my cornerstones of combat as an Eldritch Knight. It's Shocking Grasp. I love Shocking Grasp. It's such a cool spell. It does, I think it's a D8 damage. Obviously scaling up with your character, which is nice. I like the cantrip scale up just in general.
Yeah, it makes it feel really
You
powerful.
have advantage on the roll if your enemy is wearing
metal armor, isn't it?
Yes, metal armor, exactly. You have advantage on the roll. I mean, first of all, that's amazing straight out the gate. Like, that you can get advantage on the roll like that. And then on top of that as well, if you succeed in your attack, your enemy can't take reactions until the start of end of your next turn. Well, I'll just double check here now. Lightning Spirit in your hand, you have advantage on the attack roll if the target is wearing armor made of metal. On a hit, the target takes a D8 lightning damage, and it can't take reactions until the start of its next turn, which means, and you'll remember this because I did it in a one-shot round, where I did that to a creature, found out in that moment that the creature did some damage, Shocking grasped it, if you will, discovered that the creature had lightning vulnerability, and then, oh no, interesting, hit the bonus action, hit with my melee weapon because I was Eldritch Knight, ran away a full distance without provoking an opportunity attack because of Shocking Grasp, and then used a action surge to cast a 3rd level Chromatic Orb with lightning damage, and did a significant amount of damage that round.
Described as hit like a truck, I think would be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, or an electric train, if you will, if we're just staying on brand.
Eco-friendly.
But yeah, I just love it. I think Shocking Grasp was such a cool spell. There's not enough. Well, debatable. I think there should be more like up close elemental cantrips that you can use. You know, you got Poison Spray, you got Shocking Grasp, Booming Blade, Green Flame Blade. Lightning Lure, I think technically is kind of up close, but yeah, I just really like it.
Yeah,
it's a great spell. I love lightning damage as well. I have a thing for lightning damage because if you look at all the damage types, if you want to play a fire themed character, you're really kind of set on fire. If you want to play a I don't know, a cold themed character, you're kind of stuck on that as well to a degree. But if you want to play like a lightning character, Thunder pairs so well with that you have 2 damage types and they're really, really good. Because like you could just be a storm themed character in terms of your damage, and I love that. I really do.
Yes. One thing I really like about Shocking Grasp in particular, I'm a big fan anytime when there is anytime you've got it where there's like magic, but the way the spell or the magic works is at least slightly based in how like real physics works. I really get a kick out of that. I love stuff like that. So like the fact that it's like you're generating an electrical charge in your hand and you're reaching out to touch someone. So like the electricity naturally, you're the source point of it. Like so you're like the point in the sky that the lightning bolt comes from, and you're looking for, and it's looking for the ground. So like the fact that then gives you advantage on the attack roll to hit on metal armored opponents is so it works. I think it just works so well because of course a spark would want to jump to someone encased in metal. Like it looks for the easiest path to the ground, and that's the dude covered in tinfoil.
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of cantrips. The way they typically do is that they're like it does some damage and it also does an additional effect. This is like one of the only ones that does 2 effects. It has the advantage because of metal armor, and also it stops them from having reactions. So and I guess maybe that's to offset the fact that it's not a ranged spell. You have to get up close to use it. But again, when you're playing Eldritch Knight or anything like that, love it, absolutely love it. I just turned 3rd level in the Eldritch Knight I'm playing, and I only got to dabble in the magic. I had some cool moments where I got to recall my sword to my hand and feel like a bit of a badass.
I love that.
But I'm looking forward to be able to really delve into this, and this will be one of my primary cantrips that I will keep on me at all times.
Very nice, very, very nice, cool. Okay, I'm going to keep. Again, mine are in like no particular order, but I do have one I probably like the best out of all of them, and it's just from it's a spell I have history with, so I think I might keep that to the last.
Is this one of the ones that I might get? I might get angry about.
Okay. I think it is. So I'm going to pick one that I just think is a really good spell for kind of anyone who in that kind of general caster range, particularly anyone doing if you're going down either like an elemental theme, so like druids. I think this is a really good spell for, and particularly if you're going for like an ice themed character, and that is Ice Knife.
Yes.
Ice Knife.
Always, yes.
Just for any of our listeners who don't know, Ice Knife, you create a shard of ice and fling it at one creature in range. You can make a spell attack roll against it. When it hits, they take a d10 piercing damage. Or if it hit or miss, it then explodes. And the target and each creature within 5 feet of it have to succeed on a dex save, or they take another 2d6. So just and that also goes up by an additional d6 for every each higher level you cast it at, because it is a 1st level spell. So just like it's also got a range of 60 feet, which is crazy. So
60 is nice, for what is technically a thrown thing. 60 is pretty generous. Yeah,
that's more than a dagger, isn't it? A dagger's max range is 30.
I think a dagger can do 60 long.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. But it's 20 short, 60 long, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Okay, good. I think I was actually just thinking of a different projectile, but yeah, it's the fact that you can like hit or miss. You're probably going to damage something, and a lot of the things you'll be fighting, particularly at lower levels, a lot of them might not have the best dexterity saving throws. I'm thinking like undead, giants, What else? Anything kind of like made out of stone or something like that, like a golem
Yeah.
maybe. Although I think
I
maybe
like that
a
it has.
stone golem might be a bit much at like lower levels.
I like that it has 2 damage types as well. It's got your piercing and it's got your
Yes.
cold, so that you're kind of hitting them with both two sticks at once. We'll say, for
Definitely.
lack of a better term.
I
like that though.
I really love the aesthetics of the spell as well. Like I can so see that in my head. Where, like you hold up your hand and like a literal like just dagger appears in your hand and
Just
you
a
throw
just
that.
a shard like that. Yeah.
It's so it's almost like Gambit-esque as well, where like you throw it and hit or miss, and it just goes and like rains. It's like it's like a shrapnel bomb or something. It's crazy.
Whenever I picture it, I always think about the moment in Avengers 1. So there's a moment where in the Battle of New York, right, where Hawkeye is firing and all. They're in the middle of the battle. He fires an arrow. It hits and it stabs one guy, and he's kind of like about to fall, and he's drooping. It sends out this circle of other shards that go like in a circle and hits like 3 or 4 other guys. And I always picture it like that. It hits that one guy is now dead, but before he even hits the ground, it bursts in a bunch of other projectiles hitting everyone else nearby.
I need to double check because I just had is that available for artificers? Because if it is, that would be how you explain Ice Knife as your artificer.
Ooh, I don't think. No. Druid Fighter, Eldritch Knight, Rogue, Arcane Trickster apparently can use it as well.
Oh, cool! That's awesome because most Arcane Trickster stuff is just like illusion and kind of deception.
It's typically illusion and enchantment. Yeah, I think there is some. Honestly, I don't have much knowledge, despite Aaron playing one in our last campaign. I can't remember much stuff about Arcane Trickster off the top of my head.
I think from what I remember, and most of my knowledge of the class comes from Not the Brave, or Vets Bernardo in Critical Role, it seems to be
small little podcast. Don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Oh yeah, no, small little show, great.
Yeah.
Lots of nerdy ass voice actors. But yeah, I know. I think they actually definitely. I think they do get some. It's like enchantment because Mihai can do the lightning bolt thing, and that's just enchanting the bolt with a lightning spell. But yeah, that's we're kind of getting off topic here, and they're going into Critical Role and stuff like that. Again, something we'll probably do an episode on in the future is just stuff we love about Critical Role and things from it.
Yeah, totally.
We're both huge fans of the show, I know. All right. Do you want to go with your second spell?
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna go with this one because I had a good moment with it, or rather, had a good hour because that's how long it lasts for. Mm-hmm. Recently, in the game I'm playing in with our friend Gavin. 1 second now. I'm gonna bring it up. It's a second level spell. It's concentration. It lasts an hour. You'll be familiar with it because when we played originally, with our first characters in the first campaign we were in, I used this all the time. It's such a good spell.
Can I guess?
It's Pass Without a Trace.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was going to say Conjure Barrage for some reason. Pass Without a Trace.
I don't think I ever got high enough level to use Conjure Barrage.
Pass Without a Trace is top tier. Mike has it and has been using it a lot recently in my campaign. And they were like, I think the party average was like 25 or something at one stage. It was crazy.
Like even if you roll below a 10, like if you really, really beefed it, like, and you got like a 7, that's still a 17.
Like a 5 or higher, and you're still on a solid roll.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who don't know, basically it's a thing that let me see now. Druids and Rangers get it. Also the Trickery Cleric and the Druid or Grassland Druid as well. Yeah, can get it. So basically, what happens is you can basically, for the duration, each creature you choose within 30 feet of you, including you, has a +10 bonus to their stealth rolls.
It's crazy.
And checks. A creature that receives this bonus leaves behind no tracks or no traces of its passage. It's honestly, it's a really powerful spell. It's insanely powerful because, I mean, like, in my experience, and I think in most people's experience of the game, at one point or another, you're going to find yourself as a party stealthing somewhere, whether it's to get the drop on an enemy group of goblins or to sneak into a fortress or whatever it is.
If you ever go underground in D&D, everyone goes stealthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the time. It's just if you're going through a tunnel, well, maybe they will. I don't know. Everybody plays the game, but most people, I don't think, are going to walk into a tunnel where you're like, oh, we know the goblins are camped out here, and take their shield and their maul or their hammer and go bang, bang, bang. We're here, goblins. Bang, bang, bang. So like,
I
Yeah,
guarantee you
it's so
someone has.
yeah, no, someone's going to comment on this now and just be like, actually, Connor, we do that all the time. It's how we lure them out. So, um, but yeah, I love it. It's so, so good. And I had a great moment with it. Pardon me. I had a great moment with it when in Gavin's game where my Eldritch Knight had died. He's back now. It's all good. But he had died, and I played my very first character, Vaskeen, but I played him as a rogue. But I went Wood Elf, and I took the Wood Elf. He gave us a first level feat. I took the Wood Elf magic one,
Ooh,
and I
nice.
took Pass Without a Trace as my spell. Or I say it gives you Pass Without a Trace, I should say. And we had to infiltrate this house with a bunch of guys, and we were going room to room, kind of clearing it out like a dungeon. I cast that before we went in, so every time we did stealth rolls, moving from one room to another room, like very rarely did anyone roll below like a 10, or roll below side like a 15 or like a 20. Like most of the time, it was above 20. We were not detected when we were entering most of the rooms. And then I was leading the way as Vaskeen with my bow, and I was doing it like I was like a member of like a SWAT team. I was going in, opening the door. Literally, the first room we went into, I went in. There's 3 guys in there. None of them know I'm there. There's one right in front of me, 10 feet away, and I just shoot on the back of the head, sneak attack, dead instantly. I think then combat started. I did very well initiative-wise, and then just shot another dude, instantly dead, and then the rest of the people just cleared out the last guy. I had such a high kill count in that house. Never detected until some of the fights broke out a little bit, but for the most part, never detected. Loads of instant kills. I think Gavin was very, very annoyed. But it was really, really fun. It was a great moment, and I've had loads of times where I'm just like, Pass Without a Trace is so invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's if you're playing a druid, a ranger, or a trickery cleric or whatever, it's just always have it on.
Shadow Monk also in there.
The Shadow Monks get it as well, actually. Yeah, as one of their things. Yeah, it's so good. So yeah, I don't know. One of my top spells maybe of all time, actually, because I've had it on a few different characters, and also I've seen people use it as well. I'm like, this is it's just brilliant. I can go on, but I won't.
I always just to go to a critical role again. I that spell is so associated with Vex from campaign 1 with me. It's just like that and Hunter's Mark. Those 2 spells are so closely associated with her.
It's actually funny because Laura is now playing trickery cleric, who also gets Pass Without a Trace.
Yeah, I didn't like 2 things that I thought of when you were saying that. I completely agree with everything you were saying there. But also it's one is I didn't realize how good that it was, because pretty much all the other games I played, someone had access to either that or something similar, or the party were very, very stealthy on their own, because my characters are never stealthy. Like, my characters are always either really big dudes or slightly smaller dudes in lots of armor, and like that's the way it's always gone. So I'm never great at stealth, but no one in my original version of my current party had Pass Without a Trace. Well, the druid did, but she never took it, so I didn't have to deal with that a lot. But half the party were rogues, because there's 4 players and 2 of them were rogues, so like they still always had a really good group stealth check anyway, because like the other 2 would roll middling to well, and then the 2 of them would roll like 25s, and I'd be like,
exactly,
okay, cool, fine, that kind of tilts the average. But like, even if you only have like 1 stealthy member, or if it's like an item or something that lets you cast it, and like you might not even be stealthy yourself, like even if the whole party doesn't roll like obscenely well, like it's fairly common to do with Pass Without a Trace, like even if like as long as you don't roll a 1, Pass Without a Trace will still give you a somewhat decent stealth
if you
score.
roll a 2, that's a 12. 12
but
is not great, but it's also not terrible, like,
But also, if there's a party of 5 people and you roll a 2, and that puts you at a 12, it's highly likely the other 4 people are somewhere between 18 and 23.
Yeah.
So like
statistically, like if you're looking at averages on dice, it will take modifiers out of it entirely for the moment, right? You just got a 0 flat dex. You're wearing basic armor or no armor, so you have no disadvantage or anything like that. The average you're going to get is like a 10 or 11 I think it's 11 is technically the average of a D20. So the average is going to be that, plus a 10, you're already at 21 right there. You know,
Exactly.
that's not including any, even like a plus 1 or 2 from any little modifiers you may have or anything at all like that. It's yeah, it's just it's probably too broken. Realistically, a plus 5 would have been very generous to begin with. A plus 10 is insane.
We'll just stop. We don't want wizards to hear you because
We don't want to give them any ideas
because they're definitely listening. Cool. Shall I get into my one now?
Yes, please.
All right. So my second one, it is indeed a paladin spell, but a couple different classes get it. Cleric, paladin, knowledge domain cleric, order domain cleric, and an oath of the crown and conquest also get it, and the fiend warlock also gets it.
Okay, hold up. Okay.
Oh, do you want to try and guess? Oh.
Yeah, okay. Call us the classes out to make it.
So I'd say cleric and paladin, and within those two, the knowledge and order domains get it, and then for paladins, the oath of the crown and conquest get it, and also the fiend warlock gets it.
Is it a conjuration or evocation spell?
Enchantment.
Oh, I'm off my game altogether.
When I say it, you'll absolutely know why I picked it.
Go on, hit me. What is it?
It's a first level spell. It's got a range of 60 feet, and it's a wisdom saving throw to resist it.
Oh. Is it like command?
Yes, it is command.
Yeah.
So anyone who hasn't looked at command, it's basically you speak a word enchanted with usually holy power, and it's a one word command, and you command. Your DM can give you a bit of leeway on that as well, but it's a one word magical command you issue to a creature. They give you 1, 2, 3. They give you 5 options in rules as written. Which if raw will say that's what raw stands for. It's drop, flee, gravel, and halt. Oh, sorry, I mistook that. That's higher levels. It gives you 4 options in rules written. But yeah, so for drop, obviously quite obvious. The target drops over its holding and then immediately ends its turn. Flee, the target spends its turn moving away from you by the fastest possible means, almost like they've been turned. And then you have what is my personal favorite one, which is gravel. The target falls prone and ends its turn, which is crazy. It does also shout out though. You might issue a command other than the ones described here. If you do so, the GM determines how the target behaves. So they're
so powerful for a first level spell because it actually, if you look at the very first line, it says a creature and not a. Like technically, that's a first level spell you could technically use on a dragon.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I commanded a dragon to stop as a 6th level, I think. It was
when you faced Mirnax.
Yeah, Mirnax. It was like I think it was
6, 7.
My turn, then the dragon's turn, and then it was Sage's turn. And I had a decent amount of health, but the rest of the party were kind of badly beaten up, and the dragon was between me and them. So it was starting to get a sticky situation. But I think the dragon was also quite hurt, so it was kind of a cornering a wounded animal kind of a situation. So it was getting kind of rough, and I remember just looking through my spells and looked through, and like. The best thing about command is I don't believe they have to. Oh no, they have to understand your language.
They have to understand your language. Yeah.
Thankfully, dragons speak common.
True.
Red dragons, anyway. So I commanded it to grovel, and then it just basically dropped prone, and then ended its turn, and then the next turn, our monk sage came up and beat its brains.
I think she cast Shatter, right into its face, and the thunder damage killed it.
Yeah, it was brutal, but it's just such a good spell, such a wide variety of uses. You let me away with murder later in the game. Then when a rogue, I nearly said Arkham, a rogue Drunan, I think he was either possessed or he was like charmed, and you let me use the command awaken to force him to make a save to try and break.
Oh, I don't remember that at all.
It was one of the cool things. You let me, as I say, you let me away at murder. But like, I think it was either
he got away with a lot of shit.
We did, and I fully acknowledge that. But I think you'd say like we used the spell instead of like forcing a condition to basically give him another shot at re-rolling the saving throw.
That was it. Yes, that seemed. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense because I was there and I'm like, did I just let the charm wear off? Then?
No, what was I thinking? Oh, sorry, I probably explained that badly. But no, you let it be an additional shot at the saving throw.
Yes, that's more in line with what I'm thinking I would allow now, so that's fine.
Yeah. No, and I like that because like I like any spell that gives you room for lateral thinking.
Oh yeah, and like it gives you those 4 or 5 suggestions. Again, like you said, grovel is great because they basically miss a turn. And in terms of the action economy, having a creature not take its attacks or any of that stuff is just like it's yeah. It's like if you're looking at the numbers and all that kind of stuff, and how many attacks you get, how much health you have, and all that kind of stuff, it basically skips an entire turn and then just takes a whole other round of attacks from its enemy.
And with grovel, they'd all be at advantage as well.
Exactly, because it's said that they go prone, the enemy goes prone, and it's like you get those few suggestions, but it does say in it, I believe it does say in it that you can basically as long as it's a one-word command, you can give it, right? Yeah. So like if you're creative, and I've seen some creative ones out, like Awaken was a great one, like that if you're creative enough with a spell like that, most enchantment and illusion spells can be that as well. Is if you're smart in how you use them, you can really do some lateral thinking, some really interesting stuff. And it's great like that. Fun thing as well, because I think you've done it a few times when you had command and all that. But if you're ever fighting a boss of any kind, most boss baddies, even if they're not humanoids, it could be a dragon, they could be some other creature, a hag or something like that. Knowing me and hopefully knowing other DMs as an extension, if you want your baddies to monologue,
yes,
you gotta speak common. And if they speak common, that means they're susceptible to command.
That's a great point.
So tip to all your DMs out there: have your big bads only speak Elvish or Orc or something like that, so that if someone tries to shit talk them in command, they won't know what they're talking about.
See, then you get into the players. Players have multiple languages, though.
True, yeah. But that's what's to say. Like, I mean, for talk's sake, if I had a big Orc commander that you were to fight as Eru, Eru didn't speak Orc.
No, he didn't.
So that wouldn't have worked.
True. I think that's where one of my other spells will come in.
All my baddies from now on only speak Sylvan. Oh no! Wait, Modron. They only speak Modron.
God damn it! Cool. But yeah, that's my second one. I just love command, and like command is just it's purely for those two moments. It's up there with one of my favorite spells.
Same with me and Pass Without a Trace. It's one of those ones where you have a history with it, so it's definitely on your kind of favorites list.
I feel like spells are a lot like that. Like obviously there are some out and out just great spells like Fireball, but like other thing, and a spoiler, Fireball is not on my list because I thought it was way too obvious.
Yeah, no, not on mine either.
Either is Counterspell for the same reason.
Counterspell is on mine, but I wasn't going to name it as one of my. We were in to pick 3. I have a list of like 9 here, and Counterspell is there because, and I'll tell you why Counterspell is there, because I love fucking with my players. It's really one. Well, okay, just not to get too distracted with Counterspell, but I love reactionary.
We can just go into it now if you want. Like if you want to just talk about Counterspell, I'm cool with that.
Well, there's a third one I do want to talk about.
Oh, okay.
Which is very, very cool. But with Counterspell, or any reactionary spell, any spell that you use a reaction to cast, I love Counterspell, I love Shield, I love all those things because it's cool in a combat when you're kind of thinking theatrically when you're trying to do out your combat, and you're like, I hit him. Okay, your turn. I hit him. Okay, your turn again. I hit him, and it's just kind of back and forth. But when you can like go, ooh, I use shield, or oh no, he's casting this, I counterspell that. It's those moments make for some really, really clutch, really theatrical and exciting kind of moments in a campaign. Just again, to go not to dwell on Critical Role too much, but if anyone who's seen the end of campaign 1, there is a moment where the big bad tries to cast a double banishment. And then the bard is just like, "Ooh, counterspell! Ooh, fuck you, DM!" And it's one of the best moments in that show. It's so good, and like I'm pretty sure in campaign 1 for us actually, we had a couple of different times where I would cast a spell, or one of my bads would cast a spell, and then Mike as Shamash would cast counterspell. And then I would counterspell as counterspell,
yes.
And then someone else would counterspell, and it just kind of it was just people like ricocheting all these different spells off each other. But I love that because it's so like tense in that moment. You're like, oh, can I cast this?
It's the roller coaster. It's like, oh no, spell, counterspell. Oh yes, counterspell. Oh!
It's just back and forth.
there was this very similar one with that recently in Critical Role. Actually, I think it was I think it might have been like Sam cast a spell or Veth cast a spell. The bad guy counterspelled that. Then Caleb counterspelled his counter. No, oh no, sorry. Yes, sorry.
There's too many counterspells.
It was like the bad guy cast a spell. Caleb counterspelled that spell. Then he counterspelled Caleb's counterspell. Then Ford counterspelled that guy's counterspell. And
I love that.
Just like what, like layers upon layers. It's like playing Magic the Gathering. Where like this is an instant. I was like, oh man, that I could never get into that game purely for that. The level of like, well, this happens in this, and then this happens. This is like,
yeah, it's a lot of like countering. You're countering all over. Just while I mentioned it there, so shield. Yes. It's also on my list. Great reactionary spell. I think it's like a quintessential caster spell to have. Just because I love the idea of a huge like, I don't know, like an ice giant, a frost giant, I should say, or something like that, running up to the wizard and going Rah! And bringing an axe down on him, and the wizard just goes boom, and this dome appears around him and blocks an entire 30-foot long axe or something like that. I just think it's great. I think like visually, I love how it looks and feels.
You're explaining exactly why I love the Spirit Shield ability that Ancestral Guardian has.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, actually, there is a perfect example. Is that in a moment you can use this reactionary class ability to negate some of the damage on an ally. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love because it doesn't just feel like you're taking turns and going, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead, you get to be like 1, 2, 3. Oh no, 1 is going to counter 3. Oh, but 5 is going to counter 1, and it gets really convoluted, but in a really exciting way.
Yeah,
and I love that.
I think that's great. So I think that I went last. So I think now it's your third spell.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of stole 2 other mentions on my list.
It's cool.
Get this bloody app working for me. Okay, the last one I have is going to be one that's a bit unusual. It wouldn't be on everyone's list of things, but I love it. And I'm like I said, I'm playing an Eldritch Knight, so I'm looking at kind of like spells that I can use that bond or kind of mix the idea of magic and martial very nicely. And this one that I love here, it's Rangers and Wizards get it.
Can I guess?
It's an action.
Can I guess?
You can guess.
Zephyr Strike.
Close. Very close. It's
Steel Wind something?
Steel Wind Strike, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because I love that as well.
Yeah, it's so good. So basically what the spell is, you choose up to 5 creatures that you can see within range, make a melee spell attack against each target. On a hit, a target takes 6d10 force damage. And then you teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 5 feet of the target you hit or missed. So basically, you're surrounded by, what's it was? 5, 6 guys? 5 guys. 5 guys come up on you and you're surrounded. You get to do like a proper like anime style.
Yeah.
And then, you're standing there with your sword still hand outstretched. And you watch as the 5 guys behind you just go, oh, and all keel over one by one. It's so good. I love it. And I'm looking forward to high level Renyolf is my Eldritch Knight. I'm looking forward to high level Renyolf, where I can just be in a moment and be like, oh, 5 dudes, the perfect number. And then it's 6d10 force damage is also an insane amount of damage.
Someone's gonna clip that. And just just you going 5 dudes, the perfect number.
God damn it.
No, I totally agree. That like very big anime feels from that spell for me as well. What I thought was, this is actually perfect. You use my pen for it. What I always imagine it is, do you know the samurai thing where it's like the sword is open and it's like, it's 1,000 years too soon for you to face me, and it's like shh, and it just goes, and everyone like splits apart. That's super.
It's the moment where 2 anime characters charge at each other, and then you see the screen goes black, but you see the 2 white lines.
Yes,
go,
the samurai.
They've exchanged places. They're facing away from one another. No one's moving, and then the wind blows. And goes, and then you watch one guy go, and the blood starts pouring, and he drops dead. And you're like, or what's his name? Oh, do you know who'd be great for actually if you were doing a build of Wrath from Full Metal? Fuhrer Bradley.
My Full Metal. Oh, sorry. Yes, I have never watched it, but I have seen the scene where he takes apart an entire building with a pair of swords.
he's like insanely fast, and one of the first times you see him, he's kind of like inspecting Edward, who's the main character, and Edward uses alchemy to create a spear out of the ground, and then he charges the Fuhrer. But he charges him and stops just below, like just in front of his face, like that. And it's meant to be like I could have done it. And the Fuhrer's like, very good, young man. And then he goes to turn and walk away, and he supposedly he did not move in this moment, but then all of a sudden the head of the spear goes and falls off, and everyone's like, when did he move? And he's just walking away with his sword in his hand, but you never saw him draw it, you never saw him move, but he was fast enough to slice the head off that spear just in an instant. It was so cool.
I think a big bonus point for that spell as well is that it's force damage, which I think, does anything have resistance to force damage that isn't wearing a shield of a brooch of shielding? A shield of broaching.
A shield of broaching. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Force damage is the big one, because like because we went all the way to 20 and we saw a lot of force damage, particularly when Shamash started busting out the disintegrate nearly every E5.
Oh well, I made the clockwork man resistant to force damage just to say fuck you, Mike.
That's fair.
Because
fair.
Mike kept burning all those disintegrates and they were tearing through everything. So I made him resistant.
The disintegrate twin spell is one of the most hard. No, it was he had twin spell, and he had, it's not hasted spell, it's quicken spell. And he would do like disintegrate, quicken spell, bonus action, disintegrate. And it was just like, whoa. Like, that's no matter what happens, that's 80 points of damage.
I let him get away with so much.
Yeah.
He got too powerful. He grew beyond my control.
I'm so scared.
Shamash was the Agent Smith. In my fictional Matrix world, Shamash was Agent Smith who grew beyond my control. He learned how to change the fabric of reality himself, and I could no longer rein him in.
Oh God, man. Yeah, that was just high level D&D is just pretty naughty too. Right. We'll try and go a little quicker on this one. So this is the one, right? It's a second. This is my third one. It's a second level spell.
Okay.
Casting time of a bonus action, and all you need is the only components you need are visual. You only need to be able to see. It's from the School of Conjuration. If you want to try and guess what that is, Connor.
Can I get a class?
Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard, Circle of the Land Druid, Oath of the Ancients Paladin, Oath of Vengeance Paladin, and Oath of the Open Sea.
Okay. So, and you said it's a bonus action. It's a conjuration.
You're very familiar with this spell.
Is how long does it take to cast? Bonus action?
It's instantaneous, and it's a bonus action. And it's this will probably give it. Its range is self.
No.
You act.
Okay, is it Find Greater Steed?
No.
Okay, because I remember that time you summoned a griffin, and I thought that was what.
That's a fifth level. That's fifth level. Is Find Greater Steed. You'll kick yourself.
Oh yeah, sorry, you said second level. Well, sorry.
Misty Step.
Oh, Misty Step, yeah. Yes. Oh God.
I played.
You got your mileage out of that.
Yes, I did. I played an Eladrin Vengeance Paladin, so I had a free cast of Misty Step, but I always had it prepared as well. And oh my God, I love this spell. When I was saying earlier that my list was in no particular order. I meant that, but at the same time, Misty Step is my favorite spell out of anything we've said so far, because it's so good. Just like particularly that it's available on your likes of your Warlock and your Oath of Ancients, Vengeance and Open Sea Paladins. Given a martial class, and a bit like we said it last week with the Sai Warrior, I believe, when we were talking about our subclasses and tashes, because that gets flight at 6th level. Like the ability to just disappear and like to just turn into mist and reform 30 feet away at a point you can see. My particular favorite thing about it is that it just requires you to have visual sight on it. There's no verbal components. There's no somatic components. I abuse the hell out of that fact. Anytime anyone grappled my paladin, the next time it was my turn, I turned into mist, reappeared behind them, and stabbed them in the back.
Yeah, it's honestly it would be one of my favorite spells as well. I just love teleporting in D&D. I think it's so cool. And not for like the abusive reasons that you've done, but I just think like you feel like a badass when you
Mm-hmm.
can charge up on someone and then bonus action Misty Step behind them and then slash with your sword. You know, it
Yes.
just feels cool and it's really enjoyable. Yeah, I honestly, I really do love Misty Step as well.
Oh, it's
I like you had a really cool setup where because you were playing an Eladrin, you had one use of it, and then you got it as part of your class as well. So you had a few uses. I'm doing the same thing with Shield as my
yes,
Eldritch
nice.
Knight, where I'm going to take Magic Initiate and have one use there, but I'll also have my spell slots to use as well because I plan on wrecking Gavin's head with Shield. There's gonna, like I said, there's gonna be giants swinging, 66 great swords down on me, and I'm just gonna be like Shield.
Very nice.
One thing actually, just very quickly, because I remember seeing this when I was reading through Tasha's, there's a few, the Fey touched feat in
yes.
Tasha's lets you get Misty Step. You learn Misty Step spell and one first level spell of your choice. I believe you can cast it. Yes, you can cast it this way until you finish a long rest. But that's nice if you're, again, that would have been perfect if you were still playing
totally.
Eru. You could take that as well and get another one plus another spell of your choice. You can bump your Wisdom Charisma by 1. There's also another one here. I can't quite remember. 1 second now. I think it's... No, sorry. There's a Shadow Touched as well, which is the Shadow Fell opposite to that one, but it's invisibility.
I think isn't there a magic tattoo that does something similar as well? It's like the Ghost Rush tattoo or the Ghost...
Well, that one I think makes you turn ethereal for a short time.
Sorry, yes, that's what it does. I'm thinking of. I think I've in my head combined that with the Fey Touch feat.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, just it's as well. What I love about it is like it's a spell. It's very old school Dracula, which is something I really appreciated as well. But in terms of it's a spell that you can have a lot of fun with in terms of how you aesthetically flavor your spells. So like whenever my particular character Eru used it, I always had like strong Batman vibes with Eru, like just in the like justice. He's very a similar kind of code to Batman, except he's willing to kill someone if they go too far because it's a D&D game.
Oh, Eru was very willing to kill anyone.
I was lawful good.
Well, no, you were it was very kind of weird because, okay, so kind of an odd change of pace or whatever. But in our first campaign, you were a paladin, you were a vengeance paladin, or you were lawful good though, and you were all about avenging those who couldn't avenge themselves and stuff like that. And it was very justice bound, which obviously was really enjoyable. And that kind of made you the moral center of the group.
Yeah,
where when anyone was like, let's torture somebody or let's do this, you were kind of like, guys, okay, cop on, we're not going to do that. But then coming into the second campaign, I think you had very strong ideas of playing Lug, who is your human barbarian, and you're like, oh, cool, I can let my hair down a little bit. I can be a little more wild here. I can be a little less goody two shoes or whatever. And you started out that way, but very soon you realized, oh, I'm with Arkham, who's a elder god touched lunatic halfling, and also with Wabu, who's a turtle who's ready to massacre anyone at a moment's notice. And you were like, well, shit, I guess I'm still the moral fabric of the group.
I'm not like Lug isn't a shitty person. He is just like rough is the way I'd put it. Like rough. Yeah. But like rough has become like center point on morality because the other two outliers are so far the other side. But
it was a drastic departure from last campaign.
Oh, okay. But not to get too bogged down, but just Misty Step, absolutely one like all time favorite spells.
I think if you're playing anything that's like Fey related, or like if you go Archfey Druid, yes. I think the Archfey Warlocks get it as well.
Yes, you can pick it up.
Obviously you don't want to be burning your... Actually, that's a great one to pair with an Archfey Warlock because you want that kind of Fey theme.
I know, I did it.
But you don't want to be burning through your spell slots that you have as a Warlock because obviously they're few and far between. So that's a great one if you wanted to kind of have an extra use of that or something like that.
Oh yeah, totally.
I like it. I could go rebuild Saren, who was kind of a Dishonored style.
Yeah, and now you actually have
first campaign.
You have Hexblade now as well to actually build that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think he was a Hexblade when I fought him, wasn't he?
By the time he wasn't. He was. I think the Hexblade was out, or at least in Unearthed Arcana. And I was thinking about it, but I thought, no, I won't change him because he has this whole tie to the Sealy court or the Unsealy court, and I wanted to keep that theme running. So I think I kept him as a Phelock. But yeah, would have been a nice addition to give him in the moment. He was a cool character.
Yeah, he was a fun character. That was a rough way to go. I thought now it would be cool if we could just give shout outs to just some spells we thought like honorable mention already. I've got a couple here. We won't go into them in like super detail. Just kind of talk briefly, kind of go over why we like them and stuff. My first one, it's one I've never actually used, but I just really love the idea and the visual of it. It's Sword Burst. It's just that's just a cool name. That's just a really cool name. Yeah. And like I don't think I'm wrong in saying this, but quite a lot of people choose their spells by looking at how cool the name is. And like if it's got a cool name, you're going to be like, oh, what's that? And then click into it. But yeah, Sword Burst. It's you create like a ring of swords around you. If any of you've ever played Devil May Cry, similar to Virgil in Devil May Cry, you can create these like spectral swords that spin around him almost like a shield and will like blender people when they get near him. Which is basically what Sword Burst does. It kind of just bursts like a burst of spectral swords around you that damages people. Does a nice bit of damage, and also it's a cantrip.
Does force.
Yeah, force damage as well, and cantrip, so that levels as you do. So by the time you get to what is it, 15 it's 15 or 16 when it around
17 I think is the capstone.
17, sorry, yeah. When you get into tier 3, we'll say of D&D, that's when and that's going to start hitting like a truck, and it hits multiple people.
Yep. So again, if you've ever been swarmed, great one to use. Similar to Ice Knife actually in your first call.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Two great crowd control spells.
I actually have those were the first two I picked. Ice Knife and Sword Burst.
Very solid choices.
What about yourself for an honorable mention?
Honorable mention. I'm going to go with Armor of Agathis.
Yes.
Great spell. Gives you temporary HP equal to 5 times the level you use to catch it. To cast it, sorry. And then when someone hits you while you still have that HP, they take cold damage equal to the level you cast, 5 times the level you cast it at. So if you cast that at 4th level, it's 20 points of temporary HP, which buffs out your health, especially if you're a little bit of a squishy caster. But then if someone comes up and hits you, with a sword, they take 20 points of cold damage instantly. No save, no nothing. It's really, really good. Arkham is using that in our current. Arkham is the Elder God touched halfling lunatic in our campaign. He's using that, and basically his kind of whole approach to melee combat. He doesn't do it often, but when he does, his approach to melee combat is I cast Armor of Agathis and then I let things hit me, and it usually works really well.
Works pretty solid. Yeah, it's not bad. I remember recently one fight he pumped. I think it was something like he got hit 3 times, and the first 2 hits took all but like 1 or 2 points of Armor of Agathis away, and then so then when he hit you a 3rd time, he just took the whole damage against it. I think that was like something like 50 points of damage and 3 attacks or something like that, and like you just from hitting you, it was crazy.
It's a great spell as well because there's no actions required. Once you cast it, like there was an action required to cast it, but I think it's an action or bonus action. I can't remember.
It's not concentration either, is it?
It's not. No, it's just up. Once you cast it, it's just up. Yeah. So once you use it, though, like it just happens. You don't need to use a reaction. You don't need to do anything like that. Let's have a look here. Armor of Agathis is an action to cast. It is not. It lasts for an hour, but it's not concentration. And yeah, you don't need to take a reaction or use a bonus action or any action to get the reaction hit out of it. It just happens once you cast the spell. So it's great that you don't then need to, on subsequent turns, burn any sort of actions, bonus actions, or reactions. It just does what it does, and it's a great spell.
That's pretty sick. My next one, probably the last one I bring up, because you mentioned green. I had Green Flame Blade as well. That's just like if you're in any way a Gish character and you have the ability to take Green Flame Blade, I would highly encourage taking it. I took it on the Paladin so that I would basically always have some modifier to my attack roll, and I think if you're a Gish character, having that even when you don't have spell slots is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And then like, obviously the fact that you can hit kind of 2 people with it.
Oh, yes.
And I mean, once you hit like what, 5th level and then 11th level, I guess.
Yeah. You start damaging both people. Yeah.
Yeah, and the extra damage you're doing when you hit with that is essentially like having a flame tongue sword.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. What about you? Oh, sorry. I was going to say Green Flame Blade, but we mentioned that earlier. My other one, it's actually the highest level spell on my list out of all of them, and it didn't make it into my top three, which is hilarious. But it's just a spell that I love, and I love like when it works. The result is so brilliant. 4th level spell, Banishment.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
great because it can take people out of the way, and has done. I remember
Yes.
in the very final fight of campaign 1 I had the Clockwork Man cast it because he went to find him on Mechanus, or Mechanus, depending who you asked. And you went to go and find him there where he was hiding out, and you confronted him, but he had brought like 3 17 level high level allies with you to that plane. And as soon as the fight kicked off, the very first thing he did was cast a high level banishment and banish all 3 of them back to the material plane. And then he just waited the spell out. And because they weren't from Mechanus, they were sent back home to the material plane. And because the way the spell works, if you keep it going for a minute, they stay on their home plane. They don't come back afterwards. So he used that basically to take out 3 of your allies out of the fight instantly and just send them home.
Yeah, that was brutal. I just love it for like it's both an extremely useful spell, because you can it's another just a creature you can see.
Yep.
So like it can be allies, it can be enemies, it can be it could be a random dog that's pissing you off, and you can just go off my plane,
just barking in your ear, and you're just like just boom.
But it
in a minute, gone.
I think it lends itself as well to really epic moments. Like like when I read Banishment in my head, I don't think I ever got to do it with her, but in my head it was like your paladin or your cleric, and there's like your stereotypical big like horned demon in front of them. Just go get off my plane, boom, and then the thing just disappears. Like, oh, so great! That's such a great character moment, and if you can pull that off in game, it just makes you feel like a badass. And like I think that's kind of what we're all like. Everyone loves many aspects of D&D, but like I think a large portion of a lot of people's enjoyment of it is like I feel like a total badass now because of the mechanics have allowed me to do that. And I think Banishment is a spell that really lends itself to that.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's one of those. I like that what you're saying there about that theme of it being like it's like a priest, like a paladin or a cleric.
It's your exorcism spell.
You're exercising them. You're saying "Be gone, demon," and you're sending them back to whence they came. So it's really great and really flavorful like that. And it has its roots in like old school mythology where you exercise something as well. So it's really cool like that.
I'm a big fan. What about your last one?
I have a couple more, but I'm going to say the last honorable mention is going to be Dimension Door.
Yes.
It's such a handy utility spell. Basically, it lets you teleport, you and one willing creature, actually, lets you teleport up to, I believe it's 500 feet away.
It is 500 feet,
yeah. Dimension Door is such a good spell. It's 4th level. It is Bards, Eldritch Knights, Rogue, Arcane Trickster, Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard. It's just verbal. You just need to be able to speak. You don't have to do anything. And then you and one willing creature. Yes. Yeah, the range is 500. Yeah, sorry, just double checking. So basically, it's really, really handy because, and I you know this because I've done it a few times, I often give it to my spellcasting bad guys because I want for them, if things get hairy, I want for them to be able to leave. So recently, you guys fought Strauss, who was a high elf, or a fire elf in my world, necromancer, and he was attacking a town you had set up in, and you had this really epic 3-way fight between him, and this other crowd, and you actually managed to I would say get the winning kill. You didn't actually kill him, but you got him down to the point where he was only on a few health, and it was his turn immediately after yours. So I was like, okay, he's getting the fuck out of here now. So on his turn, he basically looked at you, talked some shit. He's like, "Oh, burn your whole world down," and then he just action disappeared out. And it's really, really good because, like I said, it's you and one person. So you can get yourself, if your buddy is in a tough situation, you can run in there, grab your buddy's hand, and get the 2 of you out of that tough situation very easily. And it can also it can get you out of a fight just in an instant. Or into a fight if you're very far away and you're like, oh no, the airship is leaving and they've captured the princess. Oh, it's only 200 feet away. Brilliant. I teleport on board the deck of the ship. It's really cool.
Both I remember it so well. Your oath spells for Vengeance Paladin. Once you get to 4th level spellcasting in the Oath of Vengeance, Banishment is permanently prepared for you. You get like that's
Oh
why
yes.
I liked Oath of Vengeance has some of the best, I think, like
I mean,
subclass
banishment or
only.
dimension door.
Both, all of them actually. You get Vengeance Paladin. Your first oath spells are Misty Step and Bane. Then you get your. I'm going to skip third level because it's not relevant. But I think third level is like Revivify and Haste, and then it's Banishment and Dimension. No, is Dimension
Yeah,
Door?
banishment dimension door. Yeah,
Yeah,
13 level
yeah.
banishment dimension door.
And then your final one then is like locate creature and
Hold monster and
hold monster
scrying.
scrying. Sorry, that was it. Yeah, hold monster and scrying.
That's like banishment. The hunt, you get Hunter's Mark, hold person, Misty Step, which is also on our list. Haste, which actually should have been on our list, but we'll come back to that.
How did I forget Haste?
How
man?
did any of us forget Haste?
Haste is my default spell on my paladin.
We might have been a bit too hasty with our lists, Martin. Thank you. This will be the final episode of the podcast.
I'm gonna. If you see me leave and go off screen, it's because I'm getting into my car to go over and tell him exactly what I thought about that in person.
13 level for Vengeance Paladins, Banishment and Dimension Door are permanently prepared. That's really good. Oh my god! Yeah.
Vengeance Paladins have a killer spell list.
They really do. They really do. They're just great in general. Really, and just badass. I think like before Xanathar's and before Tasha's, I think if you're looking at the three that are in the player's handbook, Vengeance Paladin is kind of it's the really nice one, you know?
Yeah, I think like, but it's a really nice one. But like, if you want a paladin that just brings the heart, devotion,
yeah,
magic weapon
absolutely.
As a channel divinity. It's the early levels is a game changer.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that would have been a really good one this campaign for you because I actually fighting a golem. I actually fighting a flesh golem, and every time you hit it, it was like non-magical weapons does nothing. Oh, silvered weapons still does nothing.
And we spent so much time and effort getting our weapons silvered, and we were so confident going into that fight. I remember I was like, I'm going to fucking kill this thing.
You charged right up to him and shoved a silvered spear into his abdomen, and I'm like, he doesn't really do anything.
And then, folks, I ran the fuck away.
You literally turned around and ran the other direction. You're like, I think you turned around to Arkham. You ran in like, yeah, it's time for some fucking payback.
Yeah.
And then you turned around to Arkham and goes, the payback didn't work. The payback didn't work. And it was hop on the horse and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that immediately went from class, we can take this thing down now, to right, we need to set up barricades and just escape. This is not going well.
Let's start throwing some fire on the ground behind us and just get out and just go as fast as you can.
That was a very interesting but also very stressful fight. But I think, Conor, it's probably about time we had a chat about our topic of the week this week.
Yes, please.
So this week, I thought it would be good because last week you did kind of a very player-centric host topic, which was your first D&D characters and building your first D&D characters. We talked a lot about fighter as well. I thought it would be interesting to do, particularly because we're both DMs, but I am your player, you are my DM. I thought it would be interesting to talk about how building a Pantheon, how to build a Pantheon, how we do it, what we kind of look for and design first into it, and that kind of thing. And I know you're currently working on yours, so I thought it would be a really good opportunity just to kind of go and discuss that a bit, because I know as well we're both super into like mythology and stuff like that.
Absolutely. My work on my Pantheon never seems to end. It is as infinite as the universe itself. So Pantheons pretty central part of D&D, because you want your players to be able to go, oh, I'm a cleric of this and I'm a paladin of that, or even just I'm a fighter and I worship this war god, you know. So building a Pantheon, there's a lot of really great ones that are already there. Whether you're looking at the Forgotten Realms, Eberron, Greyhawk, there's tons, and even like there's examples you give
that page in the DMG. Where they just list out multiple cultures, pantheons, their roles, and their symbols. Like I think that's an invaluable resource.
The Player's Handbook just lists like Norse, Greek.
Oh, sorry, that's what I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's at the back of the Player's Handbook. So actually, these are real world mythological pantheons from I think it's Celtic, Norse, Greek.
Greek kind of covers Roman as well. If you want to do Roman,
because they're kind of similar pantheon.
No, they're the same pantheon, different names and slightly different rules.
So they're all like, you can play real world ones if you want. You can just be inspired by them. They are examples of like, and I think my first campaign was, and I think your current one is as well, examples of a tight pantheon where you have maybe like one head god, and that god had 5 children, and each of the 5 children had a whatever, and they each have domains, but then they have other children, and sometimes they're with mortals, so they're demigods, and it kind of trickles down like a family tree. And each one has a domain, and they're all linked, and they have these stories, and that can be a very like, honestly, that's probably the most solid way, in my opinion, to build a pantheon, is to say, right, well, what do I consider the big thing in my world? Life starts everything. So life god will be the head of my pantheon. And then maybe you're like, okay, well, what else is there? Oh, well, there's probably a death god, and he's probably a bad guy because, I want my death god to be in opposition to the light god, which is good. And then you got to fill out everything else in between. Then the death god had a son, and he made him the war god because he likes fucking people's shit up.
War is always the son of death.
Yeah, and then you have a nature god, because the nature god is the daughter of the life god, and created the animals and the trees and all this other stuff. And you fill them out like that, and you can, like I said, it's a solid system. And honestly, I don't think you can really go wrong. Come up with a few names and what domains you want to cover and stuff like that. You really can't go wrong with just a tight pantheon like that, structured similarly to Egyptian, Greek, Norse, and all that, where they're, these top 2 are brothers, and then their sons became whatever, and I love it like that. That's kind of the thing you followed for yours, where you have a few prime gods and a few lesser gods and stuff.
Yeah. So my current world is based on a one shot I wrote, I think back around like 20. I vaguely remember the house we were in, so that would have been 2016. I think I wrote that, which would have been like fairly. So I would have done my final year of college in 2015, and as part of my final year, I did an English and history degree. So I did my thesis was on it was actually a comparative study of Norse mythology and the mythologies of Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, and how the Norse mythology influenced them, and the traits you can see from that. It's basically a comparative mythological study. So that was still fairly heavily in my mind when I was writing up that word, because I did it as a test one shot to see if we would do a campaign. And we didn't end up doing that campaign, but then a few years later, one of my other friends asked me to run a campaign, and I
picked it back up. Was that the one where I played the...
You played the
Bloodhunter Lycanthrope?
Yeah, which is hilarious because I have a Bloodhunter Lycanthrope still.
Which is also hilarious because that was my very first iteration of Renyolf.
Oh yeah,
who was a human Bloodhunter Lycanthrope and is now somehow a half-orc Eldritch Knight, but it's the same character, the same emotional and character beats go hand in hand,
which is crazy. But because of that, and because I'd so recently gone very, very in depth on like Norse mythology, and particularly I was already a fairly huge fan of both A Song of Ice and Fire and the Lord of the Rings series and Tolkien's kind of grander work in general. So when I was building the Pantheon, I took a lot of cues from the Norse and the Tolkien like pantheons, and they're it's particularly. I took a lot of cues from their creation myths, which is actually something I want to talk about in a second. So like in my world, and you'll probably laugh when I say Tolkien because you'll see it straight away. So the first god I designed was his name is Mirkir. He's the god of darkness and the void, because before everything was created, there was only void, and he's sort of main evil guy. He then went on to create the first generation of gods that weren't him. And they were like basically the primary elements, and then light, and then that went down to like another generation. So the way I have it structured for myself is so I called like Mirkir is the like I put him in the same generation as the ones he created and call them the primeval gods, because they're the ones who are responsible for the world being the way it is now. And then I did another generation called I think they called them the Descended. The Descended, because they're the descendants of those primeval gods. And then the third generation gods, I think I called them hilariously the Ascended, and they're lesser gods who would have been, say, maybe very powerful mortals through great effort and sacrifice or particular piety and divinity, were raised up to the status of minor gods from mortals. So I think like what I kind of wanted to get into as well, let's just talking about our own worlds, but like kind of our processes is kind of what I kind of want to talk about here. So like cool. It was the same. Mine quite heavily influenced on Tolkien. It's a lot with Tolkien. His creator god was Melkor, and he was part of the Maiar, I believe. No, the Valar. Sorry, the Valar.
The Valar,
the
I think,
Valar,
yeah.
which are the older gods, and they like sang the world into creation, and then he corrupted the song of creation and created evil things from it. And that's kind of the vibe I wanted to go for with my Dark Art. So I took a heavy amount of inspiration from that, and what kind of reversed it, I guess, in that he was darkness, and from him came the elemental stuff, and then he was purged by the people. But he's eventually then defeated by a coalition of the gods he created, and they create a new world for that the current world is. But yeah, I took a lot of inspiration from that in particular for doing that. And then in terms of the names and place names, quite Nordic and a mixture of Nordic and Celtic as I started naming things. And then the more
the Mercure kind of thing, the use of Y's for as vowels is very evident of the like Norse inspiration.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms, just for yourself, Conor, what's the first thing you start with?
Well, like I said, when my first campaign, I very much said, all right, well, I want a traditional D&D campaign or D&D Pantheon where you cover all your bases. I think I maybe look at what, and I think if you look at some of the stuff Matt Colville does for his world building, if you watch any of his streams, and he has a lot of them up on YouTube now as full VODs now. What actually he started with is he looks at the cultures that he wants to have, and he thinks about, well, what are the vices and virtues of these cultures? What are the things that they consider to be important to society, you know? And with my first campaign, I don't think I necessarily did that. I think I just said, okay, well, I should probably have a war god. Oh, and probably a nature god. And probably like a god of life and all this other stuff. And I try to cover all my bases that way. And that's, like I said, it's probably the most consistent approach, because with that, you're going to make sure that whether your players want to be any type of cleric, any of the multiple cleric domains, or whether they just want to be a regular monk or druid or anything like that, you have nature covers your druids and your rangers. You have a god of the arcane, which covers your wizards and stuff like that. I think looking at what the domains are, what the patronages are, and then deciding, right, here's all the bases I want to cover, that's probably where I would start. And then from there, I would go, right, now how do I want them to be ordered? Are they grouped in bundles of 2 and 3? Do they all stand completely independent? Are they part of some, like you said, like in Tolkien, they're like an alliance. So did they not form at the same time and they're actually separate entities, but then they came together after the fact? Kind of deciding on the structure is probably where I'd move to after that. But the primary thing is that, especially because we're not, you and me anyway, we're not writing books, we're creating D&D worlds. We want for our players to have all the bases covered, so that no matter what a player can throw at you, whether they go, I want to play a guy who's like a cleric, but he's an alcoholic, so there needs to be a god of wine, and I'm like, Dionysus, got you, babe.
Yeah.
And you have something ready. And even if there isn't a Dionysus equivalent, like a drinking and revelries god in your world, you can be like, right, well, this god is actually the god of like homesteads and family and celebration and feasts. So feasts would factor in with that. So you can totally worship that god, and you have something that covers the bases. So, like I said, decide what the domains are you want to represent in your world, and try to do a good job of catering a wide variety, so that no matter what your players come at you with, you can be like, yes, I have a god that suits that need, and then worry about structuring them afterwards. Because honestly, structuring can be very, very simple or very, very complicated depending on how you approach it. Structured Pantheon, like family tree, very, very simple. The tree's already made out. Just put them in the spots you want them. Trying to approach it like I'm doing in my current campaign, where I'm looking at real world religion, and I'm like, but how do they interact? Okay, well, in real world stuff, like the gods aren't, depending on what your belief system is, the gods aren't necessarily real. So Buddha doesn't necessarily interact with Jesus, so that's not a big deal. But in D&D, if you have separate religions, how do these gods that are worshipped by different countries and races and creatures and stuff interact with one another? Do they live on the same plane? Do they live on different pocket dimensions? What happens? It gets really convoluted very fast if you dive into it. But if you're approaching it from a first time DM perspective, I think your 2 steps. It's a 2-step process. Come up with it's a 3-step process actually. Come up with the domains you want. Come up with a structure for those domains, and then come up with some silly names that you feel sound good. That's step number 3. Then you've mastered religion. Congratulations.
20th level cleric. There you go. Here's your badge. You brought up something there that I think is actually quite a worthwhile thing talking about. So you mentioned, so I do quite a similar thing before we kind of break into something else in terms of when I'm first designing the Pantheon. I like for my one, I went for, I've only done one campaign. I'm still in the middle of running it, and I went for the very similar family tree thing. Not necessarily like marriages and related to like. I haven't, none of my players have dived into it that much, so I haven't codified it and put it down on paper or on a screen rather. But I have like vague ideas. So in terms of generations, I want to do something a little weirder, and I quite like the story of the birth of the gods, the birth of the Olympians in Greek mythology, where all these various Olympians are born when pieces of Titan that were like Titans that were killed in the war between the gods and the Titans, when they or like not the war between the gods, was it? It would have been, sorry, yeah, it would have been the war between the gods and Titans when they like hit the ocean or all those weird things. Like Athena was born from Kronos' brain, I believe. And like Aphrodite, they sliced off Kronos' testicle, and when it Kronos' testicle, and when it hit the sea foam, it burst and she emerged from it.
Yeah,
like that. I want to do
wacky shit.
I want to do like I haven't like, as I said, I haven't really codified anything or put it down and kind of laid it all out. But I kind of want to do that kind of crazy stuff instead of like, oh, it's like and also, by the way, there's nothing wrong with doing the traditional stuff. I've done very traditional stuff, and
absolutely.
So if something is cliche, that doesn't mean it's wrong. You can use cliches, but if you use the cliche inventively or put your own spin on it or just change it enough.
Things are cliches or stereotypes for a reason.
They
or
work.
Not necessarily stereotypes. So the cliches usually for a reason because they're good. People use them a lot because they're good.
Yeah. Tropes inherently are not a bad thing. Is what it's
exactly. Yeah. People use them because they're good. It's compelling.
Well, there are good and bad tropes, but like tropes as a general thing are not inherently bad, as I'm trying to say. But yeah, I just that kind of stuff I think is quite worth going over and just looking into. As the way I would develop it in my current world near Quebec, so it's heavily Norse and Tolkien inspired, as I was saying. But the way I designed it was, I had an idea. So I knew what my party was going to be before my gods were designed. And then I wrote a creation myth. I took a decent amount of inspiration from stuff like the Norse creation myth, particularly because I was doing a lot of Norse stuff where they killed Ymir and they built the sky as his brain pan, and when he died and all of his blood flowed out of him, and that made the oceans. And and I think like his bones are the mountains, I think, maybe, or his bones are the land, and his spine is not, like, it's just, they just made basically different, like, the clouds are his brains as well, which is a hilarious one that made me laugh when I read it
because of the shape.
The shape.
That makes sense for me.
But I looked into a lot of stuff like that, and like the Tolkien myth and other stuff. Usually you'll find some really, really cool and inspiring stuff if you look into the foundations of certain mythologies. Now, some of them you might not be able to find or might be a bit complex, but I'd recommend looking into those. But yeah, I went creation myth, and then I went, okay, who do I have in my party, and are any of them divinely related, either characters or casters? I didn't have anyone who was particularly religious. I didn't have any divine casters. I had a warlock, and I had a sorcerer and a druid. So what I did instead then was I went from what would be directly impactful to players to what would be directly impactful to the world in general, and probably come up in early quests. So I went for the big ones. I did the first generation, so because the primeval gods, so I did like darkness, light, fire, water, earth, and air.
Yeah.
And then
I did the same in my first one as well. I did the but you know me, I have a thing for the four elements. Yeah. So I very much took the four elements, and then I put in light and dark as well. Why not?
Yeah. Actually, Chinese mythology and sort of the Chinese elements are a really cool place to look for inspiration for that stuff as well.
Yeah, they've got different metal elements. And wood, I think, are included in that.
Metal and wood are included. Yeah, it's real interesting. But I went from then I went to the ones I thought would be most would probably show up a lot more. So I went for like life, death, war, love, knowledge, the sun, the moon, and then storms, and I think I did also like mountains and seas as well.
Ooh, I like the mountains one actually. That's not one I would have considered, but I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's Thalk the Earth Titan is his name.
Falk is a really good
Yeah,
name.
I liked it. It's like it just sounds like like rocky and stony. So that's kind
Yeah,
of
it sounds like it's like something you'd throw something heavy you'd throw at
yeah.
someone. Yeah, I walloped a thought off him.
Or it'd be like in the sound
It's something
bubbles.
like that. It's,
It's
you know.
something you could see popping up on screen when Batman punched a guy in the 60s.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Just
it's nice and punchy and impactful.
bam, thwack, thought.
But yeah, which is actually good. We've certainly gone back around to what I said we'd eventually get onto, which was I think a lot of people struggle with naming their gods. I know it's something I
Yeah,
put a decent amount of time and effort into, because you want to, like, obviously you can emulate certain pantheons and stuff like that, but you want to make it your own, and you can just pick them because it sounds cool. But I think the one of the best ways you can build them is to build them in with meaning and stuff that you can translate from maybe other languages, because then it kind of helps it stick in the brain better. And like, oh, did you say like, oh, this is like so and so, it comes their name, and they're like, oh, that's a really cool name, like, oh, that comes from it's like half Norse and half Old Irish, and it means this and this, these two words put together, and then something
yeah.
about the two words you've used to make the name also describes the domain of the god. I think that's a really solid way to go about naming your gods.
I just had an idea to that effect actually. In terms of naming, like you said, it's good when they have meaning behind them. I
Mm.
mean, when you have a cool sounding name, by all means, go with it. But if you want it to feel like the gods really have impact on the world, obviously etymology is,
Mm.
for those who don't know, it's how names of things come to be, and the study of that. So if there's a place that, like, for example, in, like, if you look at, like, England or Britain, for example, a lot of towns end in ham, like West Ham, Birmingham, stuff like that. That comes from, I believe it's like a French derived thing, if not mistaken. That's like it's from the French word meaning farm, which is like champ.
Oh, okay.
So, like, Birmingham would have been like Birmingham's. Birmingham probably has a different meaning as well,
Yeah.
but it would have been something farm because there probably would have been a lot of farms there. And in a similar way, in almost like a reverse etymology kind of way, it'd be interesting to look at like like an earth god, for example, right?
Mm.
And go, right, well, that's the god of earth and stone. Okay, well, what if the word earth came from his name, but you want to walk it back a few steps instead? So you went, okay, well, earth is the word, right? Okay, well, what if it was eth? Okay, well, what if it was etha? Okay, now let's twist it a little bit more. Ethara. Ethara is the earth god of my world. She is
Okay.
the goddess of stone and the ground beneath us and all that. And you're like, Ethara is who it is. But the word earth is derived from Ethara. And you've kind of reverse engineered a way that our common English language is now part of your world in a very concrete, no earth god pun intended there, but in a very concrete way, because there's almost like an
Mm.
etymological
Yeah,
etymological
yeah, etymological, yeah.
etymological, thank
Which
you,
is the easiest
kind
word to
of.
say.
Yeah. uh there's an etymological grounding or anchor for it. So I think stuff like that can be really cool if you want to really, especially when there's something that really primal,
Mm.
like earth, fire, stuff like that, things that
Yeah.
have been around since the dawn of time. Have the word for them come from the god that gave you that thing. You can do other things of this with, like, hunting as well.
Mm.
You could take the word hunt or the word kill or something like that, and you could mix them around and roll them back
I
and change a couple
find
of vowels.
I find with stuff like that as well. Latin is a great resource for coming up with cool names,
Yeah, Latin
because
is like the old language.
yeah, like I think the Latin for darkness is umbra, which is just cool.
Yes,
Yeah, that's just a great, like. Feel free to steal that for your gods of darkness, if anyone who's listening.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I've done something similar as well in that. So I if for with a lot of my names, because a lot of them I actually only wrote recently, because like I said, I kind of sketched out the early ones that I thought would be influential and important early on in my campaign, and it's only recently now, as my characters have become more interactive with, like, the godly sphere, shall we say, like that kind of the gods and that
That
level of
upper
supernatural.
echelon of interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, like they literally just dinged 10, so like 2 sessions ago. So yeah, they're now starting to get at that mid tier where you start encountering, like, gods and the messengers of gods and avatars and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I built out the whole thing, and particularly because I'm using the Vestige of Divergence system, that Matt Mercer has in the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount for like artifact weapons, and I plan on have like I'm
the Taldora campaign guide.
Yes, I the Taldora campaign guide as well. It's just I think it's laid. I just prefer the way it's laid out on Explorer's Guide, and also that's available on D&D Beyond, so a lot of people will have access to it. But yeah, I'm using those. So as a consequence of introducing something like a vestige into your world, you're kind of obligated to have a pretty well fleshed out pantheon and kind of at least a handful of gods, depending on your party size, who have not only a signature weapon or some kind of a signature weapon of their champion, or weapon or item or armor or something like that. It's usually I say a weapon because it's usually you think God items, like usually a weapon.
Yeah, it's Thor's hammer.
Thor's hammer is a
Odin's
perfect
eye.
example.
It's something like
Odin's spear, Gungnir.
You can also have Odin's eye.
You could, he did lose one of them. If you found that, I'd imagine
you found his broken one that gives you true sight out to a range of 120 feet. There you
go. But yeah, with my one, so I was thinking a lot about the sound of names as well. Like the sound of words and the shape of words can really influence how you view something and how it feels like it fits. So
you are reading my mind right now.
I actually got it backwards when I was talking about my Earth God character. So he's not the god of mountains. Thalk, he's not the god of mountains. He's the Earth Titan, so he would have been the god of Earth. Sorry, he's the Earth, and then you'll understand why I'm bringing this up now when I say it. So my god of mountains is called Kerak, which is crack, if you say it quickly, as in like a crack or a crag,
Kerak. Okay, I like yeah.
So like the idea, I just like the idea when you were saying the etymology stuff. So like I designed that to sound like something like a rock or a stone, like a crack when it like breaks or falls or something. Yes. But you mentioned that etymology thing, and straight away I just went, okay, cool. So that's how the word crack came about in my world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like to what you're kind of saying there as well, it doesn't necessarily need to be the origin of a word, but you can just take a word.
Oh yeah, Kerak is one of the few gods where I don't have the name based on words from another language. I more did it on the sound.
Exactly, but like they don't necessarily have to be a. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think what my old Pantheon was called. But like
Aros was the god of time, Bragoth was the god of war, I believe.
I believe he was war, yeah. But I'm trying to think specifically of, I had one like that where it was my Earth God, just to stay on Earth God for the moment. And he had a very broad, like a lot of broad vowels and sharp consonants, like hard consonants and stuff like that. And even if you don't necessarily take the word earth or the word fire or water and kind of roll them back in like a reverse etymology kind of way, you can still absolutely just take a word and make it sound. You want to evoke the feeling of that. Like you wouldn't call, and well, you could if you want. I'm not going to say what to do about your dad. But if you wouldn't like call, I don't think you call an earth god like Lysa. You know, Lysa's, it's a bit light. It doesn't air. Feel like earth. Yeah, Lysa would make more sense for air, exactly, because it's kind of Lysa. It's light.
It sounds like the word lighter as well.
Exactly, yeah. And again, that's the kind of thing. It kind of that captures a feeling when you say it. You go light. You're kind of you're going up like that, and it kind of makes you feel lighter. Whereas if you kind of want to call like an earth god like Gordok or something like that, where it's like,
that's a god of war. That's a god of war. Gordok, that's a god of war.
Gordok, yeah, exactly. But you want the word to capture the kind of feeling of how you feel when you say the word. You know, you can use a lot of F's in a fire god, or you can use I don't know, a couple W's or maybe an SH sound for like a sound of water for a water god, you know?
There's a specific branch of science that studies this, and I cannot think of it. It's like semiotics or something, where it's the sound and symbols associated with words. Because it's the whole thing over like I have a piece of paper. If I drew like it's the thing where like if I go like this on a tree, if I go like this, right, it might look nothing like it. But okay, this is going to fail miserably because you can't see it.
Yeah, can't see that at all.
So, but like if I draw.
Also, sorry to our audio listeners.
But like, actually, that's a good point. If I were to draw a circle with 2 lines from it and dots in the circle, you would read that as a tree.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
get you.
yeah, you know what I mean. Like it's that kind of a study of like where I'm getting
It's
sidetracked a little.
how it evokes, what reaction it elicits out
Yes,
of
yes,
people.
and I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's a very good thing to think about when you're both building and naming a pantheon.
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's very much the names of the gods. It can be, again, if you come up with something that just sounds cool, fucking roll with it, man. Don't tell anyone. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. But if you want to make it feel grounded in your world or to elicit a certain response, if you want your god of darkness to have a really scary name, come up with something that sounds menacing when you say it. Morgoth sounds menacing.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely.
Mirkir deliberately sounds like murky.
Murky. There you go. Yeah, see, exactly. That's the kind of thing you want it to feel like it's describing something dark or something ominous. But Martin, I think that's all the time we have this week.
I think so, Connor. Yeah, we got. I think we might have gotten a bit. This is probably one of our longer episodes. I think because we both definitely got
It's
carried
dragging
away.
on, I know. You grabbed that notepad a second ago, and I was like, "Oh shit, he's gonna start drawing something. We're gonna be here forever."
no, that was going to be a quick drawing, but that'll be it. Cool. All right. We just say thank you very much, guys, for tuning in for our second episode of MicFlayers. I had a blast. I think you did as well, Connor.
Yeah, my throat's actually sore from talking so much. I'm sorry if I rambled on a little bit.
Yeah, I knew this would be fertile ground for discussion, and I think it's something we could even revisit at a later time if it's something our viewers want
it
us
is
to do.
very much something occupying my thoughts a lot.
Yeah, we didn't even get into your whole new Pantheon that you're designing. So
yeah,
maybe
I will definitely bring it up next time.
Yes, for a later time maybe. So, Connor, where can people find you?
People can find me on the internet. On Twitter, I go by @0.Conor, ZEROPOINTCONOR. The one N is very important, guys. Yeah, that's about it. Other than here on the MicFlayers podcast.
Very cool. You can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, all one word. And I'm also on Twitch on Murt, and that's MURRT. And you can also, if you want to reach out to the show and sort of send us suggestions for topics or just really anything you'd like us to discuss in general, or any kind of questions you have for us about or if you have any questions about building a Pantheon after seeing this episode, please feel free to give us a shout over on our Twitter. It should be down in the bottom right hand corner of the video here, but it's at MicFlayers Pod. That's MicFlayerspod on Twitter. And you can also leave us comments on this video for any topics or anything else you'd like us to see. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll say goodbye from me and goodbye from Connor.
Later, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. And have a great one. And we'll see you for the next episode of the MicFlayers podcast.